Welcome to the Business Owner Spotlight Series. My name is Gabriel Moore, and I am Senior Partner here at Action Coach Vanguard in Central Iowa. Today, I have Matt Frideres, the owner of Woodmaster Remodeling, as my guest. We're going to be talking about his business, journey to business ownership, challenges, best practices, and share a peek into what it's really like to build and operate a business. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications when we drop new conversations just like this one. Matt, brother, welcome and thank you for being here today. Please give us a brief overview of your background and tell us a little bit about your business.
Well, thanks for having me, Gabriel. Um, my background is I started with a college degree in aerospace engineering. And while I was going to school for engineering, I went on a military scholarship, but I always needed a little bit extra money. So I would pick up odd jobs doing construction work in the summers and weekends and whenever I didn't have stuff going on. And then when I
It's
got
like the
done with
go-to for college stuff, right, Matt?
right. And it was really easy because I was going to school in Daytona Beach, Florida, and
Oh,
all you had
nice.
to do was walk onto a job site and tell them you were from the Midwest, and they would literally hire you on the spot.
It's those
It didn't even
manners.
matter it didn't even matter if you had any skills. They were like, you know what, corn-fed Iowa boys will work from sun up to
That's right.
sundown.
That's right.
And so I picked up a lot of skills doing that, and I really liked the construction work. I would have probably switched majors in school, but the U.S. Army is not super keen on you switching your major if you're in a scholarship type of situation.
Sure.
So I finished it out with the aerospace engineering. And at the time I graduated, there wasn't much going on as far as military action. So I ended up getting I mean, I was I didn't have to really do any time. I was in active reserve for 4 years, I think, and then I was done with that.
Thank you for your
Uh,
service, Matt.
yeah. In the meantime, I just started doing construction work right out of college, uh, and I worked for uh, formerly a production framer out of California that taught me a lot about um, production framing, new homes and stuff like that. So I learned about the framing portion of it from him. And then I started dating a girl whose dad had a long history in the construction trade, and he uh, talked me into starting a business with him.
Okay.
And I came from a long history of blue collar workers. In my family, nobody thought about starting their own business. Nobody thought about going out on their own or doing anything like that. We were raised from a very young age that, the best path in life is to get a 9 to 5 job or whatever, working for a solid company and get your
Yep.
pension and yada yada yada. And so that's
Hope
how
you
I
can
was
take it to
raised.
retirement, right?
Right. And
Yep.
so that was my mentality because that's how I was
Yep.
raised. And that's the people that, I grew up with, and all of my aunts and uncles and my dad and everybody, they were all, um, lifers at some business somewhere. And
Right.
so, starting out a business, honestly, that was the toughest hurdle for me, was actually making that decision because of the unknown. You don't When you first kick it off, you just don't know. You don't know if it's going to be successful, but I'm a
Right.
relatively fearless guy. So I gave it a shot, and we started out with framing crews. And at one time I had, I think, 6 framing crews. We were framing about 30 to 40 houses a year. And then we added finish crews in there at some point. So we were framing and finishing houses for builders in the Des Moines area and Ames and all over the place. And because of my engineering background, we picked the biggest, most ridiculous, extraordinarily complicated houses that we could find to build for people. The ones that nobody else wanted to touch. We built a
Sure.
house up in Boone for Joe Rediker, the guy that owns the furniture company up there. And
It's
we
an
were
A-frame
literally
house,
the
isn't it?
only company, yeah, we were literally the only company that would even look at the project. Nobody else
Wow.
would even touch it.
Okay.
Uh, so that's kind of how I started out in the construction business. I started out, I went through the small business SBA loan route and bought the
Okay.
equipment and everything that we needed to get started. And we, of course, got all that paid off within 3 or 4 years. And we were pretty, it was a pretty lucrative business. And then
Sure.
unfortunately, my marriage didn't go the way that I wanted it to. And being in business with my father-in-law, that was kind of an awkward situation. So we split the company up and I took over the finished portion of it. He took over the framing portion of it, and we kind of went our separate ways.
Okay.
And then as my daughter started to grow up, I needed a little bit more flexibility with my schedule. And so I started into the remodeling, home improvement type of stuff.
Okay.
Uh, so that I was more available, for their schedule. Um, because it's a lot easier to take a day off of work for a remodeling project or schedule around stuff with
Sure.
remodeling work than it is, when you're doing new construction and you have, crews working underneath you and you need to be on the job site
Right.
regularly.
Supervising. Yeah.
Right. And I quickly found out that remodeling was really, I was very passionate about it. Of course, I grew up, my dad was a very handy person. I grew up, we were remodeling always our house, or one of another house in town. My parents sponsored several Vietnamese families that came here after the Vietnam War, and we
Okay.
kind of helped them get set up in houses. And we would buy old rundown junky houses and remodel them to help them get started. And
That's good
so,
stuff.
I kind of grew up with a hammer in my hand. I will say my dad, I love him to death, but most of the lessons that I learned about building stuff was how not to do things versus how to do things.
So you didn't have to go through the
Um,
whole trial and error process, Matt?
yeah, but some those are some of the best lessons. Some of the best lessons that you get in life are failures. So you got to
Oh,
remember
that's a
that.
fact. That's a fact.
Failing upward is
Yeah, failing forward is what we call it.
yeah,
Hey, real
yeah.
quick, if I can ask, tell me a little bit about what role you currently play in your business.
So currently I function more like probably like a project manager is kind of the function that I serve. Um,
Gotcha.
we have a few in-house employees that kind of work with us on a continuous basis. And then because the projects vary in scope and vary in size and uh, the time of year, obviously, we're
Right.
much busier in the summertime than we are in the wintertime. Then we typically will bring on subcontractors to kind of fill in those gaps.
Okay.
Um, and so my role is essentially kind of onboarding new people, monitoring the project, making sure they're successful. A typical day for me will consist of me getting up, doing office work for usually an hour or two, checking on jobs, then picking up materials. And then I'm back in the office usually at the end of the day doing invoicing or drawing plans. We do all of our own estimating. Um, we do all of our own design work. So
Okay.
there's quite a bit of design work that's involved that I get involved with sometimes. So
When you look at your role, Matt, how many hours do you work in your business where you're actually doing a job, and then compare it to how many hours you work on the business where you're actually growing the business, you're strategizing what it's going to look like in 5 years, you're planning those kind of things. What would you
I
say
would
that split?
say I'm trying to mentally check the boxes on the thing
Sure.
that are growing the business versus running the business. I would say probably 4 to 1 or 5 to 1, probably 4 work and business functions to
Yeah.
1 improving business.
Yeah, we
or
see
working
that.
on future business.
That's probably pretty accurate, actually. We see that as I would even say that might be more so than a lot of businesses. A lot of business owners tend to work primarily in the business and on the businesses saved for weekends if they're motivated. You know what I mean? And it's
Mhm.
kind of hard to get behind that sometimes when you're buried inside of the work. It's hard to see the fire. Well, I guess one of the things we say, hard to see the fire when you're in the fire. You know, if you're on the outside, you can see how big it is, but when you're inside the fire, you have no idea how big the fire is.
Right.
And so,
No, yeah, I can definitely see that.
yeah,
We're I mean, our business model is a little bit different than a lot of companies in that a lot of remodeling contractors are geared more towards a specific line of business, where whether it be, siding or decks or bathroom remodels or kitchen remodels.
sure.
I try to stick a lot more. I I'm geared more towards the clients. Um, we will do virtually any project for a good client.
Okay.
And so that's kind of different for us because we don't, as far as the marketing aspect of it, probably 99% of our business, maybe 98% is referral work.
Sure.
So when we get a client, if I have a good client that's easy to work with, that is, pretty low stress, I would rather do a retaining wall for a client like that than $150,000 whole house remodel for, some difficult client that makes the job stressful all the time. But one of the things that I enjoy about this is I enjoy the interaction between myself and the clients. That's one
Sure.
of the things that I enjoy most. I love my job because we get to meet people, we get to discuss their dreams and their goals, kind of like what you do, and
Yeah.
then we
Yeah.
go to their house and we make those dreams a reality.
Yeah.
And
Isn't it wild?
there's a quasi intimate relationship about that where, and a lot of people say, oh, you can't do work for friends or you can't do work for family. Honestly, some of the best friends that I have right now started out as clients of mine, so I totally disagree with that. I think that if you do provide a quality product at a fair market value, and you focus on your customer relations and you focus on making your clients happy, there is absolutely no reason why you can't be friends with those people. So,
Sure.
but then once again, that depends on the clientele too, because there's certain people that you do projects for, and we run into them every once in a while. In fact, we just had a project last summer, and they were a new client, and they were never happy, and you run into people like that. And so
Yeah. You're
those
actually
kind of
speaking about some advanced business tactics when we talk
right.
about A, B, C, and D customers or clients. And it
Yeah.
sounds like you've got a pretty decent handle on what your A client looks like.
Yes.
And it actually kind of leads me to a marketing question for you, Matt, because I know you just mentioned a minute ago that you do a lot of referral business. And I will say that referrals and word of mouth or organic growth is probably the number one marketing source of most small businesses. The only downside to organic growth is that you're not in charge of the growth. The organic growth is in charge of the growth. And so how that develops is up to time, essentially. So we have less control as business owners on that growth. And it may or may not be a downside. I mean, it really depends on which kind of lifestyle. However, with the marketing aspect, I don't want to lose my train of thought here. You were just talking about, we were just talking about A, B, C, D customers. What does the perfect customer look like to you? Like if I was a potential customer, what kind of attributes or criteria would I need to be that perfect fit for Woodmaster?
Well, I think the single thing that probably defines the best customers to have are people that understand that they are hiring you because you are an expert in your field. And there needs to be a level of trust there. Most of the clients that you run into issues with are clients that are not very they're not very trusting people initially or even throughout the
Yeah.
project.
Very
So
skeptical, maybe.
right, skeptical
Yeah.
people. And so then there's always questions about, then questions always come up about, whether or not you're being fair with change orders, or whether you're giving them the best value for their money.
Sure.
The projects are so much simpler if people look at you and say, okay, this guy's an expert in his field. He comes highly recommended.
Right.
Um, and so I know that I'm dealing with somebody that I can trust, and they're willing to just hand you the keys to the castle,
Sure.
and they'll
Yeah.
give you fair
Let you
input.
work.
And though that's an ideal customer, and
That's
regardless of
great.
what they need done,
Right.
you can make money in the construction industry doing anything. You can make money, like I said, building retaining walls, doing bathroom remodels, kitchen remodels, room additions, new houses. We've done all of it. And
So, well, but between the marketing thing, how many, besides the referrals, because you said 98%, what's the other 2%? How many
the
marketing
other
strategies do you
2%,
currently
so
do?
we're a full service remodeling contractor, but we
Okay.
kind of specialize in custom millwork and replica millwork. So
Okay.
we and one of the reasons, and I love, that's kind of my hobby, my passion is woodworking. So we get, well, I've had 3 in just the last couple of weeks of people will call me from Google or from House that need some millwork replicated, or they have an ongoing remodeling project. We'll get B2B business from that, from other
Okay.
contractors that need some millwork replicated, or some cabinets built to match existing
Sure.
cabinets and a turn of the century home or something like that. And so that's a lot of where our new business comes from. So we kind of get our foot in the door that way.
Okay.
And invariably, once you start talking to people, you figure out that there's 15 million things that they need done, and they don't have anybody to do any of them. They just called you about the carpentry portion of it. And
Right.
so that generally translates into additional work. And
I would
so
imagine. Yeah.
what starts out a lot of times as a call from a homeowner that needs a few pieces of trim made for a closet turns into a bathroom remodel or something
Right.
like that. So
And
uh
do you have flexibility in your schedule to take on extra work like that in a project?
yeah, I mean, generally speaking, what I found with remodeling work is that people are pretty flexible with their schedule. So we have, we're right now booked out until probably May.
Okay.
And
Excellent.
I kind of try to keep it at that point. I try to keep, 3 or 4 months worth of projects scheduled.
Sure.
Uh, but what we have, because we're fairly flexible and the people that work with me are fairly well trained on all aspects of the production, what we can do is we can transition from our kind of core team doing most of the work to subcontracting portions of the work as the projects and the number of projects expand. So going into the
Okay.
summer, so if we do a bathroom remodel in the middle of the winter time and we're kind of just down to our core team members,
Right.
what we'll do is we'll do the vast majority of the work in-house.
Gotcha.
And then we'll subcontract the portions of it that have to be subcontracted because of code
Electrical, maybe
or
plumbing, things
whatever,
like that. Yeah.
sometimes plumbing or electrical or whatever, and then we'll do everything else that needs to be done.
Okay.
And then sometimes we'll actually even work with the subcontractors to help them with portions of their work. So, I
Okay.
might have one of my team members, helping, Darren pull wires or something to kind of move that stuff along.
Okay.
And
No,
then
that's
as we transition
good.
into the busier months or we get more projects, then we'll bring more subcontractors in to kind of fill in the stuff. If we're too busy to, install the flooring in-house, then we'll bring a flooring subcontractor in to install the flooring.
Okay.
And, a painting contractor to do the painting. And so then,
Fair.
so, so I,
Specialists for the specialist jobs. Yeah,
right. So
absolutely.
I kind of schedule it so that our core team stays busy all the time. And then we
Okay.
kind of fill in, the excess work with subcontractors. And we'll have projects sometimes in the summer where 90% of the work is done with subcontractors. And then we'll have projects in the winter where 90% of the work is done in-house.
Gotcha.
Um, that's and that goes kind of back to how, I kind of onboard new people and train them. My
Sure.
process for doing that is I try to bring them on fairly early in their career. I try to hire younger people, and then I train them pretty much from the ground up. And I found that training people one time the correct way to do things and kind of teaching them the interactivity between the different portions of the construction process initially helps them get a really good grasp on the project as a whole and makes
Right.
them a lot more utilitarian than, say, hiring somebody that's been doing it, for 30 or 40 years and potentially
Right.
the wrong way. And then you have to try to retrain them the way that you want things done.
A lot
Um,
easier to hire somebody on their character and personality rather than their
yes,
skill. Skill
yes.
can be
I mean,
trained.
I'll take somebody that knows
Yeah.
absolutely nothing
Yeah.
about construction, that's motivated and
Yes.
hardworking and
Yes.
honest
And
and
we'll put
and
the
is
effort in to train
very
someone like that. Yeah.
right. And you can train those people. I've trained people that had, zero experience. I had one of the best guys that I ever had, and he actually still works with us. He does a lot of our subcontract work.
Oh, good.
He's got his own business now, but he kind of fills in for us when we need some extra help. um Started out, I met him, he was a roadie for a band
Okay.
called the Blue
Yes.
Island Tribe, and
All right.
he was building a drum stand on a house that I was working on where they were staying, the band was staying.
Sure.
And I said, you're very meticulous about your work. um and he seemed like a really clean cut guy. I'm like, if you decide that you want a full-time career making things, then let me know. And about 4 or 5 months later, he called me up and he said, is that offer still open? And I said, yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And so we worked together, quite a bit, one-on-one for about a month. And then as he kind of picked up the aspects of the business, I kind of separated from him. And then
Yeah.
he was on his own a little bit more. And then when we would get into projects where, he had no experience in it, then I would work with him kind of on those projects. Almost like that's kind of my leadership style.
Like a mentorship, maybe.
Yeah, that's exactly my leadership style. More like a mentorship.
Okay.
I want to allow people to make their own mistakes. I want to allow people to learn organically,
Yes.
because the best way for people to learn is the best way for them to learn, and every person is different.
That's right.
So one person, may learn better from, just tackling a project and figuring it out on their own. One may learn better from having you show them. One may, and so people have different learning styles. And
Yeah.
so if you allow people to uh, utilize their best learning style, and then you also have to kind of, because people don't always understand exactly what that is, especially if you're dealing with young
No,
people.
we've got processes in place to actually uncover things like that.
Yeah.
And
So you
that's
kind of have to
yeah.
figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, and once you've kind of figured that out, um, and figure out, kind of what motivates people, because different people have different motivations too. Some people are motivated by project completion and the feeling of satisfaction that comes from, completing a project. Some people are motivated by money. Some people are motivated by, schedule flexibility.
Altruism. Yeah,
So,
lots of things.
right, there's a lot of different things, and there's different things that are important to different people. And so,
Yeah.
the thing about kind of running it like a mentorship is you develop kind of a personal relationship with those people. You kind of figure out what makes them tick. You kind of
Sure.
help them down the path, and then the successes are
And
theirs.
that's worked for you, yes?
Oh
Thus
yeah,
far?
yeah,
Excellent.
absolutely. Um,
Hey, Matt, unfortunately, we gotta wrap up here.
oh,
But I got a few rapid fire questions for you.
sure.
These are quick top ahead answers for each. So either one word or one sentence for each one of these answers. You ready to rock on this?
Let's do it.
All right. So what is the key to success for you?
Oh, understanding that every project and every client um, is another 5 projects, or that's what my business depends on.
I love that. That's great. That's client centric. I love it.
Yep.
What is your one piece of advice for other business owners?
Don't try to grow too fast. You grow at a pace that's manageable.
Good advice. Good advice. And what is one book you're reading now or have read most recently?
It's a Jordan Peterson book. Not 12 Rules for Life, but I think the follow-up one for that. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Great. If you remember that, I'll have you message it over to me. We can get that in
Okay.
there. And then if you had to choose only one area of your business you could immediately improve tomorrow, what would it be?
Oh,
It's a good one, isn't it?
yeah, that is a good one. And it's not difficult because there's a bunch of areas I feel are lacking.
Which is the one that you can choose. Yeah.
I would say if I just had a magic wand to wave, it would be to find good potential new recruits to kind of work within the core business, because that's probably the most challenging part of what I do. And I would say that's probably true for a lot of businesses.
Yeah,
Is
you're
is
nailed that.
finding help, finding good help. So
So true, so true. Before we get into the final question of the day, Matt, how can others learn more about you and Woodmaster Remodeling? How can they get in contact?
so we've got a website, thewoodmaster.com, or you can find us on Facebook or LinkedIn under Woodmaster Remodeling. We've got pictures on both of those, and you can contact me directly through that.
Is there a phone number?
515-979-3331, or
3331.
thewoodmaster@outlook.com.
There we go. Say that loud. Say that one more time.
Thewoodmaster@outlook.com. THE Woodmaster@outlook.com.
Perfect. All right. Last question of the day. You ready for this?
Sure.
What is most inspiring to you today?
What is the most inspiring? Probably the reason that I fell in love with this business, which is walking away from a project at completion, or standing there with the clients and looking at the completed project and having just seeing the glow in their faces and the happiness that I bring them when we, bring a project to fruition. And
What a great thing.
there's no other feeling like it. I mean,
It's powerful.
not from a business or work standpoint. There's nothing else like it.
Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabriel. Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah, as we wrap up, I just want to say thanks to Matt again. This has been an amazing spotlight journey. We've had a lot of stuff. Matt, you covered a lot of ground, man, and a lot of great stuff. I hope people come back and take a look at it. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you taking it to the next level, brother. That's for sure. But otherwise, Matt, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel.
This has been Business Spotlight with Matt Frideres of Woodmaster Remodeling, and your host, me, Gabriel Moore with Action Coach Business Coaching. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.